welcome to this new video on this YouTube channel, F1 Mandy. And so today I just wanted to continue talking about Drive to Survive. So now I saw episodes 4, 5, and 6, I believe. So we're halfway, like more than halfway through, and I keep loving it. I understand that for a Formula One fan, this is very scripted. Not scripted, but edited. Like, you can see, I was going through some Twitter, like the Twitter, F1 like Twitter sphere, and I noticed a lot of drivers complaining about how they were portrayed in the F1 Drive to Survive, and I totally get it because I can see that they left a lot of stuff out. And especially in this few episodes, because they were like the more controversial ones, and we're gonna talk more about it. But I am absolutely loving it. So episode 4 is the Mercedes episode. Episodes are kind of like divided by the teams, but not really. Like this one, though, it was a very Mercedes heavy episode. It concentrated mainly in Hockenheim, which was the German Grand Prix, which next to Brazil were the like best races last year. Like definitely Brazil and Hockenheim were the most dramatic. So Hockenheim was also the 125th anniversary. I'm gonna put the right number right here. Anniversary of Mercedes in the sport. So obviously they made a big deal out of it, and they dressed up in like this like very old-timey costumes, and it was very cute. But the race itself for Mercedes, it was an absolute disaster. So I believe that Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton had the longest pit stop of all time. It was almost a minute, and it was painful to watch. Like, you never notice how long a minute is till like they make a pit stop out of it, because it was eternal and it was absolutely painful. And then obviously Valtteri retired from the race, and then Lewis Hamilton finished outside of the points. So it was an absolute failure, and Toto Wolff was not happy. We get to see a little bit of his life, and we can see how driven he is and how precise and how very accurate he is, and why he's such a great like team manager. But also at the same time, he does seem a little bit of like that harsh personality that you have to have as a sport in the sport. And we also got to see a little bit of Niki Lauda, who obviously died right before the Monaco Grand Prix, I believe. So it was very devastating for the team. Niki Lauda was one of the people in charge of the team, and he was in charge of bringing Lewis Hamilton into the team. So Lewis Hamilton was very devastated. Toto Wolff was also very devastated, and we get to see a little bit of that, and how Niki Lauda was a part of the team, and how like not only Lewis Hamilton is the big part of Mercedes, and that he's obviously the first person we think about when we think about Mercedes, but we also get to see a lot of the things behind him, and how sometimes like the big team can still, there's so much pressure and there's so much expectation there that even like one bad race can like be like cause headlines being like Mercedes' reign is over and stuff like that over dramatization in this sport. And that was actually great. So I kind of want to see more of Hockenheim, though. I feel like that race was so iconic, and there was so much stuff that happened that like the little snippet that we got like all the crashes, obviously, like the one for Nico Hülkenberg that I remember really well, the one for Charles Leclerc, which was absolutely devastating. So we got to see a lot of the crashes, but I just want to see, I hope that they have more than one episode focusing on Hockenheim, although they only have 3 episodes left, so I don't know how they're gonna manage it. But I want to see more of like other teams' perspectives around Hockenheim. And then we move. Okay, so my opinion about in general about that episode, it was actually pretty good. It was, Lewis Hamilton doesn't seem that much like, sometimes Lewis Hamilton comes up as not the most like friendly personality in F1. I know like he's obviously a great driver, but he's no one's like, I haven't heard a lot of people being like, wow, I love him, he's the best, he's such a great personality. We don't see that a lot, and like the Netflix episode definitely like didn't help, mostly because the days that they were filming he was sick, so he was all like grumpy and like, I don't want to be here. So it wasn't that, he still didn't look that great. And Valtteri, we get to see him be like, I don't want to be the second driver, even though we all kind of know he's the second driver. He's like trying to push himself, so I appreciate seeing that. And I like the episode as in general. It was just kind of a downer, and that is gonna be a topic for the next 3 episodes. Like, it's just like that like emotional very emotional episodes, back-to-back emotional episodes, so it takes a lot out of you. So then we move to episode 2, which is the Red Bull episode, specifically focusing on Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly is a French driver. He was a rookie in 2018 and he moved up to Red Bull in 2019. There was great expectations and he wasn't fulfilling them. He wasn't doing awful. He wasn't like DNFing or crashing or like finishing outside the points. He was just doing like that 9, 8, 7 kind of range. And obviously Max Verstappen was battling Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton and Vettel and Bottas on the higher end. And obviously it's not that the results were not it. It was mostly that he was so off the pace. And this episode is another one that's so devastating because you can see Pierre really struggling. Like you can see his like how his face, like it's obviously it's clips of like different time periods, and you can see like in the first clip he's so happy to be there, so excited, so like yeah, like I'm in a Red Bull, I'm gonna do great. And then in the next clip is like right after summer testing and he's like a little doubtful because he crashed in winter testing, not summer testing. That's not a thing. In winter testing, he crashed a couple times, so he was already like, oh, I don't know, like it's gonna be tougher than I thought. And then like halfway through the season, like right before the summer break, he was absolutely devastating, and it really took a hit on his confidence, and you could tell that it did. So it was absolutely heartbreaking because we see Monaco and Canada, and Monaco is one of those races that is a spectacle. Like everybody goes there. The racing is not amazing because there's not a lot of places to pass, but it's a very hard race for the drivers. So it's obviously like you see who's good and who's not in that race, and you see that Pierre didn't do awful, but Max did great. That was the whole theme. Like Pierre didn't do awful, but Max did so much better. And obviously a lot of people say that Max does such a significantly better than the other drivers is in the Red Bull is because the car is designed for him. And I do think that has a lot to do with it because obviously Pierre had such a limited time to prepare for a car that was made for Max and made for Max's driving style. So I think it's sometimes not fair to compare this, like the second driver in Red Bull to Max Verstappen, because the car was not made for them and they get so little like training, and you can really see that the focus is not on them. So I see where Gasly was coming from. I was devastating to watch him struggle. That race in Canada where he gets lapped by both Leclerc and Verstappen, it was awful, and it was just again a bit of a downer of an episode because you see the rise and fall of Pierre Gasly, and you can see like he says like when the camera is kind of filming but not like really filming, when like right before it starts to film, that he was like, I don't want to talk about this. And you can see how much like the interviewers were like almost harassing him, being like, do you think you're gonna be dropped? Do you think you're gonna be dropped? And that's just like such a psychological hit on drivers' minds, and obviously very sad. You also get to see a little bit of his background, and I always assumed that Pierre Gasly was like a rich French guy. I don't know why, he just like gives me that air, and apparently not. He comes from humble beginnings as well, so it's really nice to see like the drivers, like how they grew up, like how proud their parents are of them, how like invested all their families in the sport. So it gives you like a second dimension to the drivers' lives, which is my favorite part of Drive to Survive. I just want to feel more connected to the drivers because they give interviews, but it's always focused on the racing, and I totally get it why it's focused on the racing, but I do like that this is a space where we can explore and see all the things that go behind racing. And it was absolutely amazing. Sad, very sad, but I also enjoyed the episode for what it was. And then we go to episode 3. So episode 3 is another Red Bull episode. It was, the thing is like, it was Toro Rosso Red Bull, but we didn't get to see a lot of the Toro Rosso side of it. It was when Pierre Gasly was dropped in the middle of the season and Alex Albon took his place. So Alex Albon, he is one of those drivers where you can see that there's talent there. You can see that in F2, he works hard and he's super adaptable. I keep saying this about Alex Albon. He's adaptable. He's been through some shit in his life and he has persevered. So he knows that whenever he like reaches rock bottom and whenever he feels like this is like the worst thing that can happen to him, he knows that there's something worse and he knows that he can only go up from there. So I feel like that's really what drives him, because again, we also get to see a little bit of his backstory and you get to see a lot of like how he grew up and how he had to be the man of his family from a very young age and be like the one that took care of his siblings. And that was actually very devastating that he actually got dropped from his junior team, from the Red Bull junior team, because he wasn't performing, because he couldn't like concentrate with everything that was going on in his life. And then like that, he still got some sponsors, got his like life together, and like just fought. And he fought so hard to get to that F2 team. And then like F2, he got third place, but it didn't look like anybody was gonna pick him up. And then Red Bull picked him up for Toro Rosso, and that was amazing. And then Toro Rosso, like I don't know, like when Gasly got dropped, they were like, okay, you're going up now. And that was amazing to see, because I didn't realize in my mind that Alex Albon was a rookie for 6 months and he got promoted to a Red Bull. Like, that is, even though, yeah, Pierre Gasly was inexperienced, he had a full year at Toro Rosso. Leclerc was inexperienced as well, but he had a full year at Alfa Romeo. Like, yeah, they were inexperienced, but comparatively, Alex Albon was, he honestly had no business being in that Red Bull. Like, yeah, he performed really well, but this one could have been an awful decision by Red Bull. And I'm glad that it worked out for them, but it was risky. So, yeah, in this one we get to see the Belgium Grand Prix. And the reason that this one is particularly sad is because this was the race where Ansel Hulberg in F2, he's not an F1 driver, he got into a horrible car crash with Jose Juan Cortera, and he passed away. And obviously he was very close, because you can also see that he was in the same like year of racing. He grew up with Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly and Charles Leclerc, so they were all very tight, because obviously when you're going through the ranks of Formula One, you get to see the same people over and over again. So he and Pierre Gasly were especially close, both being French drivers. So you obviously see how devastating they are. And it was another one of an episode that was extremely sad, mostly because of it was a very tragic thing. Like, Formula One is like, in my opinion, I have this feeling, since there hadn't been an accident in so many years, and now we have so many regulations, and we have the halo, and we have so many things that like are supposed to make Formula One so much safer, that the fact that somebody died, it was a big shock for the people that watched the races, for the drivers. So you see Alex Albon, his first race ever in a Red Bull, that same weekend, and obviously that messes you up, because like you're like, somebody just died and I'm going to go do the same thing the person just did. So it was a very, honestly, terrifying. And they were very tasteful about it, Netflix. They were very careful and they didn't dramatize it, which I obviously appreciate, because like obviously like they could have like sucked the drama out of it and it would have been awful. But they did it very well, and they also showed how Pierre Gasly ended up really well, because like it was important for Pierre Gasly to have like a little bit of a redemption arc. And I know that Pierre Gasly ends up P2 in Germany, so I want to see them, no, not in Germany, sorry, in Brazil. So he ends up P2 in Brazil, so I want to see the redemption arc for Gasly to keep going, because I do find that story to be one of the most appealing of the season last season. So I know that they don't focus on all the drivers in all the races, but I do want to keep seeing that, because I feel like it was amazing how Pierre recovered from that mindfuck that was being dropped from Red Bull. And it was also nice to see Alex just like freaking just like overtaking and coming back from, what was it, like he was in the back of the grid. He was the last one, and he came back to P5 or P6, one or the other, but it was amazing. For his first race, he had that overtake. I'm gonna put it on the screen, where he passes what was it, Checo Perez. He passes him like on this, like he goes through the grass and he passes it, and it was It was one of the most amazing overtakes of the season. So yeah, I generally enjoyed it quite a bit. I am obviously giddy. I obviously love Formula One. I'm a little concerned and sad because obviously the coronavirus is happening and a lot of races are gonna, in my personal opinion, this is not a fact. So far only China has been cancelled, but I don't see how they can make it work with all the travel restrictions that are gonna be put in place soon in many countries to have like a full season calendar of Formula One. So I do predict that a lot of the races are gonna get cancelled, particularly in Asia, but also like since Ferrari goes out of Italy and Italy is also having a huge problem right now, the season might get shorter and shorter and shorter. I know that the minimum amount of races you can have are 8 or 10, either 8 or 10. So if it gets shorter than that, like it's gonna be very sad, but obviously you have to take safety first, and it's gonna be a weird year for Formula One. It's gonna be a weird year for everybody, but it's gonna be definitely a weird year for Formula One. So I'm excited to see how everything turns out. Hopefully we get to see some good racing. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one when I review episodes, what was it, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah. See you. Bye.